Joining us now, fellow at Yale University, David Shimer. He's the author of the new book entitled Rigged: America, Russia, and 100 Years of Covert Electoral Interference. Also with us for this conversation, former Secretary of Homeland Security under President Obama, Jeh Johnson. I'll start with you first, Mr. Shimer, about the book and about the upcoming election. How worried should Americans be that Russia will attempt to interfere again?
Sure, and thank you very much for having me. As the book makes clear, and the purpose of the book is to restore history to the subject of covert electoral interference, to show what the Soviet Union and Russia had done to interfere in elections for a century and what that tells us about our current moment. And what it tells us is nothing good. The KGB interfered in our elections throughout the Cold War, 1960, 1968, 1976, and 1984. Russia interfered massively in the 2016 election and had intended to continue interfering in our politics, as I reveal in the book, had Hillary Clinton won the election. So Russia's engagement with our politics is a long-running story, and there's no reason to believe that that story will end before the coming election, as folks like Robert Mueller, Chris Wray, and Fiona Hill have already warned that Russia is preparing to interfere in the coming election as it did in the last cycle.
Mr. Secretary, you have said that this book is one of the best you've read on this topic. Why don't you take the next question to Mr. Shimer?
Thank you, Mika. David, congratulations on a good book. I thought it was fair, I thought it was balanced, and I thought it captured the complexity of the subject. I guess my question for you is you've heard me say that we have to divide the threat into separate buckets: the threat to our election infrastructure, the threat of hacking into campaigns, and the threat of Russia putting out extremist views and fake news to try to influence the minds of voters. Which of those categories right now do you believe represents the most serious threat to our nation and our democracy?
So I think both matter, but I think I'm increasingly worried about the stability of our voting process. So to take those two buckets, the first is efforts to manipulate voters. Last time around, that was spreading propaganda on social media, and that was stealing and releasing sensitive emails. But something history instructs is that those tactics are always evolving, and that voters should be on guard for their future iterations because they're designed to manipulate them. And if our citizens are more aware of those efforts, they'll be able to mitigate the effectiveness of them in real time. The second bucket is the exposure of our actual electoral infrastructure. As I reveal in the book, based on the interviews I did with 26 of President Obama's former advisors, including Secretary Johnson, Russian military intelligence was systemically targeting our election systems in the summer and fall of 2016, had the ability, according to folks like John Brennan, to alter the voter data and even vote tallies of American citizens, to the point where on election day itself, the White House was running a secret crisis team bracing for a Russian cyber attack against our infrastructure. And that was when Barack Obama was the president. Now Donald Trump is someone who has solicited rather than sought to deter foreign interference in our democracy, which means that from the perspective of foreign actors, there are fewer reasons to perhaps push harder in seeking to cause chaos in our democracy.
Secretary Johnson, it's Willie. Let me put a question to you. Harry Reid makes some news in David's book when he says not only does he believe that Russia targeted our voting systems, in other words, changing vote tallies, but that they succeeded in it. Did you find any evidence, as the Secretary of Homeland Security, that Russia actually changed the number of votes cast for Donald Trump in the 2016 election?
No, I did not see such evidence while we were in office, and I have not heard of any since. We were very concerned about that. To be clear, that was probably my principal concern in the summer, fall of 2016, because we discovered that voter registration lists were vulnerable in the hands of state election officials. But as I sit here now, I do not know that Russia was able to alter the vote count or actually suppress votes and voter registration list. But there's plenty to be concerned about, as David outlines in his book. I believe that the threat is ongoing. I believe Russia has never withdrawn from this behavior, and I think it's something that we should be very concerned about in 2020.
So, David, what evidence did Harry Reid provide to you that votes were changed? Because obviously that is the worst case scenario. As you lay out in this book, that is the great fear, that Russia or some other power could actually change the number of votes cast for one candidate or another and make a person president who did not win enough votes to become president. Did Harry Reid provide you any information on that?
So what Senator Reid told me in our interview was just based on the concerns expressed to him by officials like Secretary Johnson prior to the election about the exposure of our voting systems, given the slim margin by which Donald Trump won the Electoral College. He believes and is convinced that Russia did alter the vote count, and that in the coming decades that such evidence will come out as Russian leaders start talking more publicly about that. But he did not have any direct evidence of this, and I want to be very clear about that. But I also want to be clear that we can't just be distracted by the notion of vote alterations, because that certainly alarms the mind. But the tradition of electoral interference is to manipulate people. That is what the history in my book shows. Soviet, CIA, and Russian operations to mold public opinion in other countries. And just because we're protecting our infrastructure doesn't actually mean we're solving this problem. We have to figure out how to also make ourselves more invulnerable to attempts to undermine and overtake our political debate. And until we're able to do that, it will be open season for foreign actors seeking to direct our political processes.
Wow. Caddy Kay has the next question. Caddy?
Yeah, Secretary Johnson, you saw Russian interference when President Obama was president. So let's say Donald Trump loses in November and it were to be President Joe Biden. I guess we all have to assume, right, that the Russians would carry on trying to do this kind of stuff. So what are the mechanisms, what things can America do to try to protect itself? Is it just having, better hackers and better cyber than they do? Or is there something overarching that would give us some confidence that there's a way to protect America's democracy against Russian interference in the future?
I actually believe that a lot of good work has been done by state election officials over the last 3.5, 4 years to harden their cybersecurity of their election infrastructure. It's not perfect. It's state by state. But over the last 3.5, 4 years, the cybersecurity of our election infrastructure has gotten better. I agree with what David said. The number one threat, in my view, are so-called information ops, influencing the minds of voters by things they read and see on the internet. Voters need to be far more skeptical about some of the stuff we consume on the information highway, and be skeptical about the source of it, where it's coming from, and bring an intelligent mindset to how we vote in our democracy. I think that's the number one threat. I believe that was the number one threat that influenced voters' minds in 2016, and we know that campaign is ongoing.
So, Secretary Johnson, I'd like to ask you about the coronavirus, especially as it pertains to our national security. We've got surges happening in Florida. We've got problems with it in California. New York has found a way to mitigate, but most, by all estimates from top doctors, this is not over yet, and the leadership in this country has actually made the situation worse. How does that fare for our ability to keep our homeland safe? Is there a connection?
It does not fare well. Mika, I have to say, when I look at what's happening in the South, the Southwest, and the West right now, I am more distraught than I was in mid-April, when here in the New York, New Jersey area, we were in the depths of this crisis. Because what is happening right now could have been avoided. This did not need to happen. By early May, we had figured out that physical distancing, good hygiene, has the ability to slow the spread and flatten the curve. Yet we see this resurgence now in other parts of the country. And I believe that a lot of it has to do with our leadership at the state and national level, and the message they send to the public about what it is we need to do to protect ourselves and protect others. So this did not have to happen. And I'm very depressed and distraught about it.
Jeh Johnson, thank you very much. And fellow at Yale University, David Shimer, thank you as well. The book is Rigged: America, Russia, and 100 Years of Covert Electoral interference. Congratulations on the book, David. Come back. Jay Johnson, great to see you.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.